I have an important message for a select few. That's not all of you. This is for a select few of you guys that are listening or watching this. It's for trade business owners that have been around for a while. They understand the frustrations of marketing and being in control or not being in control. Guys, it's 2021 and many of you are marketing yourselves like it's the year 2000. Off the back of a global pandemic, we've seen huge shifts in the market with people turning to service providers they know, like, and trust. There's never been a better time to establish the tools and frameworks in your business to take advantage of these things. These things that will serve you not only now, but serve the business ongoing. Over at Tradie Web Guys, we've recently launched the Elevation Program. It equips businesses with the tools and the programs required to successfully market themselves. It gives you tools to re-engage with your past and present clients whilst nurturing potential clients. It creates assets in your company's name with no proprietary licenses. You own these things 100%. It gives your business a huge head start on the search engines with advanced SEO, and it collates all of the programs and all the services you need into one neat little bundle, including things like web development, website management, email marketing, SEO, Google Ads, loads of different softwares, strategy, support, and a bunch of other things. After going through this program, you'll have all the tools you need to market your business ongoing. You'll have a huge head start in your marketing, and you'll also have a CRM so you can continue to build your database whilst engaging your current customers and re-engaging those customers that you've essentially forgotten about. Marketing tools that you need, and they'll all be in your control. You don't owe anyone anything. You'll be able to dial it up and down essentially as you see fit. So why is this an important time to talk about this? Guys, it's important to know a lot about a little and a little about a lot. Meaning, you want to be in control. You want to know enough to be dangerous. I'm not trying to give you more work here. Essentially, we'll set everything up for you, teach you the basics, and then it's all yours. It's complete transparency. You'll never grow a business past a certain point without marketing. Word of mouth will only ever get you so far. We've spoken about it on the podcast a load of times. At some stage, you need to invest in these things. This is the simplest and most affordable way to do it. For more information, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/elevation, fill in the form, and let's make 2021 the year that you took control. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners and viewers. Welcome back to the Site Shed podcast. You are joining us today for part 2 of the Exit Strategy versus Wishful Hoping series that I'm conducting with my series co-host, Danielle Putnam from the New Flat Rate over in the US. Danielle, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Great to be back.
We're talking all exit strategy, which is kind of cool. A very hot topic for trade business owners all around the world. Something that a lot of them they see as a bit of a wish, if you want to say that. Hence why we've sort of named the series, I guess. But it's certainly, I've worked in organizations where they have just been relentlessly acquiring companies. So for you guys that think that trade businesses can't be purchased, trust me, they can, and they are regularly, just maybe not in plain sight of you. Regardless, we did touch a little bit on back in episode 1 on, how to plan that exit strategy. And I encourage you guys to listen to that one. Check that one out. That's where I was going with that. Because a lot of what we're going to talk about today in value building is going to relate back to, making sure you've got that clear exit strategy in play. And guys, I don't expect you to know, to do how to do these things. It's not common knowledge. There are a lot of people out there that can help you. There's a lot of good coaching programs that can help you with these sort of things. So I encourage you to, there's a lot of good books, there's a lot of good podcasts, there's lots of information out there. Just go and find relevant information that can help you, formulate these strategies and get it done. It's a very valuable business tool. And again, this isn't stuff that you're taught when you're going through trade college. This is stuff that is on you to go and learn on your own accord. So get out there and do it. I mean, you've only got yourself to really to hold accountable to that sort of thing. So Danielle, in this episode, we're talking about value building, and this episode's going to be more about, what we need to build to make our business look more appealing to people that are potentially looking to acquire, or if that's not the case, certainly build value into the business so that it's got more value to it in the space of maybe turnover, maybe operations, maybe delivery, number of different areas. So I'd love to hear, I suppose, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because value comes in so many different ways, shapes and forms. I think people do tend to value the wrong things a lot. Like when we speak value, a lot of people would instantly be navigating towards, how much turnover my business does. But I think you and I both know no one that has any clue really cares about turnover. It's more about what's left over. And so sometimes I think those metrics get a little bit skewed. I think as you get a little bit more experience in business, you start to understand that the value becomes more those metrics that lead up to things and result in things like turnover or profit and that kind of stuff. It's very seldom that the value itself is the actual goal, or the financial turnover of the business is actually the goal. That's normally the result of a well-executed strategy. So over to you.
Yeah, a well-executed strategy. Like we talked about in episode 1, starting to think about what my why is. What do I want? Do I want to sell? Do I want to just be a silent partner and owner, whatever it is? Value building. Let's get our mindset back over to, I think it's important to say even the word value building. How valuable is my company today? How valuable do I want it to be? And focusing every day my priorities on making my company, my business today as valuable as it can be, knowing that someday you will exit. And so before then, today, I don't want to waste today. I want to use this opportunity to make my business as valuable as it can be today. And that's going to, of course, be, like you said, in the form of all sorts of things. But a few, for example, are going to be, your business, your revenue, how much revenue is coming in. When the numbers change, you have to change. So do you have seasonal business? Do you have slow seasons and busy seasons? If so, that's a way that you can be more valuable and jump into right away. What can you do? You're going to have to look to other verticals and diversify to even out so that you don't have the slow seasons, right? If we're going to be valuable today, we can't afford to have a slow season. So thinking, what do I need to do? What can I add vertical wise? What other things? My team, already has all of these equipments and these skill sets. What else can we start offering in the home when we're there? Monthly recurring revenue. It's super important when it comes to value building of your business. People that are going to buy it potentially want to know, what's your monthly recurring revenue? Well, we don't always have that in service industries and the trades. We do have in the terms of like service agreements. You guys probably have those in Australia too, right? Yep. Service agreement customers. So a lot of times somebody looking to buy your company will ask, how many service agreement customers do you have? Because they're just trying to see how many contracted customers and the loyalty there. Of course, we know too, loyalty-wise, and I don't want to talk too much. If the customer's bought once and bought twice from you, they're more susceptible to be more loyal. But what about if you add more verticals and you're in their home more often and you can do more things for them because you diversify? That's even more stickiness and loyalty too, right? I'll take a breath and pause.
I think there's a lot of, with the service agreement style of, and we actually did a podcast on service agreements as well. And the general consensus there was they're good to have, but they're not. They can also be a red flag for a potential acquirer because what can happen is if you've got a service agreement that has, depending on the terms, like if you're going to set service agreements in play, then you got to make sure that you pretty much don't want to make them extend beyond a year. And if you do extend them beyond a year, you're in a situation where you've got potential cash flow coming in, and then you've got a whole bunch of work that you haven't delivered on, but you have to, which can be quite a deterrent from a potential acquisition point of view. Sure could. So, value building, obviously, turnover goals are important as much as turnover goals are important. I would say what's more important is profit margin. And this is actually a situation that we've encountered with a coaching program that involved with called Trading Mate Pro. And we've had a lot of clients who would come in there, and when we break down their profit revenue from the different areas within their business, like you were saying before, different verticals within their business. Say a common example is if they're like a plumbing company, and I mean, I get this all the time, like from running a digital agency, we work with plumbers and we build their websites, and I say, right, what do you specialize in? They're like, well, we do everything. I'm like, great. So it's like almost impossible. It's almost impossible to market. But when we look into some of these businesses, into the actual numbers, and you say, oh, what do you do? We do some new work. We work with a bunch of builders. And I'm like, okay. And you dive deep into the numbers of like that side of the business, and you learn that the profit margins from that side of the business are 5-10%, like ridiculously low. The labor intensity of that side of the business, it occupies about 70% of the staff's time and resource. And then you go look at their maintenance division, and the maintenance division's operating at about 45% profit. It's a tiny little part of the business because all of the staff and all of the the labor and all of the resource is basically over on the construction side of the business, but that's just keeping everyone busy. And until you sort of dive deep into these numbers, you realize, hang on a minute. So if I cut this, I'd be losing potentially 50, 70% of the business annual turnover, but I'd be increasing my profit margins by 40%.
Right. Yeah. So what you're saying, the importance of tracking, and how many things are we not tracking? And like, can we please, just everybody listening today, just start tracking today. Just start tracking at least something today. Like you said, the different verticals or the different things. And zeros, we find over here, a lot of people don't count the zeros. So maybe it's like we call it a diagnostic or a service charge. You'll go out to a home to give an estimate or to find the problem, to do the diagnosis. And if for some reason a diagnostic charge is not charged, it's a $0 call. People don't like to count the zeros. It's really an important number to count. Yeah. And so what are you tracking? Start tracking today. If you're going to be valuable or watch your value building, make sure that you're tracking today. And even if it's the wrong things, you can direct it and change it as you go, but definitely be tracking. I think less people don't track as much as they realize. Or they think they do. I mean,
after working with organizations that, as I said before, are prolific acquirers, and a lot of the conversations I've had on the podcast over the years, and people that we speak to in our community, people that also are pretty proactive when it comes to, buying businesses and that kind of stuff and adding them onto their own. Typically, the main things they're looking at in an acquisition are, believe it or not, it's not often the turnover side of things. It's nearly always the profit that's left in the business. It's always something to do with goodwill, so the name that the business has and the reputation that the business has, and a lot of that reputation, if it's a small business, can be tied to the business owner. And then it's also at a maybe I won't say secondary, but it also they might be looking at, okay, well, how does this business run? Are there processes in place? Is there a team in place? Is how much of this falls on the business owner or the high level management, so on and so forth. If I did buy this company, who'd be coming with the sale? Would the operations manager be coming? Would the staff be coming? So on and so forth. And then there's also a conversation, like in terms of cultural match, so, and you see this a lot I mean, you touched on it back in episode 1 when you were telling a bit about your story, and you're working in a business and they floated an IPO, and then you ended up back where you are, over in and very often that happens, where businesses acquire companies and there's not necessarily a cultural match and people leave, or there's managers take on other areas of the business and people are forced out. So there's all these different things, and when somebody's looking at buying a business, they're trying to tie all these pieces together and see how that's going to look and how that's going to fit. So there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, and value, as I said before, can have take many different forms.
It sure can. Culture is important, like you said too. Is what kind of, depending on what the buyout looks like, if you're going to get bought out, what kind of people do you want taking over your business? Is it somebody else in town that you like their culture and you would feel that was a good legacy of yours to pass on to that company? It's another thing to look at. That's important. But profit too, like you hit on, being honest. I think so much of what we're talking about in this series is you have to go back to being honest with yourself and being realistic, the honesty of what my profit really is. And so whether you have a CPA, somebody that you work with, having an outside person that you know, like, and trust, or just put yourself out there, your neck on the guillotine, and say, hey, take a look at my business and be honest with me. Look at your profit. Are you actually spending all your profit? Are you actually profitable? Do you have profit? What is the real number? Like, learn your numbers, ask for help. And then we have a show out here, Shark Tank. Do you guys watch Shark Tank?
I think I've seen, there must be a British one, because it's recently been popping up on my Facebook feed, and I don't really watch television.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I've been sucked into a few of these segments, and I find them quite exciting.
Well, I know that there's all different kinds of things, but the Shark Tank one, for example, here you are, you've got your business, and you're going to walk into this Shark Tank of investors, and you walk up and you say, hey, my name's Danielle, or my name's Matt, and this is my business, and I do this, and, I'm in the trades or whatever. And then they start attacking you. Well, what's this? What's that? They're asking for all your numbers. And, they either decide to invest in your business or they decide not to. But taking that Shark Tank approach and being vulnerable enough to approach somebody, whether it's a potential investor, even if you're not ready to sell, so that you can kind of get that attack to find out what are they looking at, what should I improve, what doesn't make sense to a potential buyer, or what does make sense.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I haven't watched a whole lot of them, but I found it quite surprising, to be honest, that the first thing that these people would do, I mean, they go in and they do this pitch, and some of them are just dismal, but I would think if I'm sitting there, presenting those numbers to that panel,
right?
First thing I would do. And I'm like, no, I haven't seen a single person yet walk up with folders and go, here are our numbers, here are our financials, and this is.
Yeah, they don't know them.
I'm like, well, maybe they do know them, but I'm like, God, you think that'd be the first thing? I mean, because the first questions they always ask are around, well, let's talk about this. Like, yes. It's always number based.
Well, good point, though. Good point. So when it comes to value building, if it's always number based, what numbers do we need to know?
Exactly.
Taking a look at those, and then, okay, how can we make it a little bit more valuable now?
Yeah. And those questions, they're always around things like, well, let's talk about your current customers. Let's talk about your past customers. Let's talk about your marketing. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Like because they know it better than anyone, that drives profitability at the end of the day. And you'll also find as well, like in making your business valuable. I mean, you look at, some of these classic cases of super valuable business that don't make any profit. And you think, well, why are they valuable? You look at, I mean, it's not really relevant to trades, but some of these, Instagrams and all this kind of stuff that were bought for $1 billion. Why are they worth $1 billion? Because they don't make any money. But then you look at the value that comes with that business in the form of the customer base, the database, the goodwill, the name, the presence, the branding, marketing opportunities, and all this kind of stuff. And so for Facebook to come along to them and say, oh, we'll buy this business for $1 billion, like the most undervalued. I mean, they got it at an absolute steal.
Isn't that crazy? Yep.
And so there's a lot more that goes into, there's a lot more perspective there, I suppose, with value building from somebody that actually has a deep understanding of what value looks like. And I encourage you guys to have a good understanding of what some of those metrics might look like for your business, and consider things out that aren't obvious. Consider things like, okay, well, let's look at our current brand representation. How are we pictured in the marketplace? How do we look up against perhaps some competitors? And I'm not necessarily saying you need to compare yourself, but I'm just saying it's good to have some perspective on what the rest of the market looks like and how you're positioned within it. What does your existing customer contact base look like, and how do you communicate with them? I mean, we deal with this daily. We have programs in place that help trade business owners re-engage with their database, because they've just got this churn and burn mentality where they'll go and close a sale and they never speak to them again until their drains block again and they have to call them. Like, it's insanity. And like from a marketing agency point of view, like we run Google Ads for companies and we do all this kind of stuff. And like the budget that you need to run a successful Google Ads company, if you're a electrician or a plumber or whatever it might be, it's huge budget. If these guys could just get good at re-engaging their database, they'd probably never have to spend it.
Yeah, and it could be as simple as, hey, thank you for letting us, provide great service to you today. Saying thank you. I just, even as a homeowner, so often contractors come to our house and they deal with my husband all the time, but I'm the one that's out here in the workforce doing other things, talking to people, and I'm the social one. So if they would just send me a note, hey, it was great, being at your house, and send me their card, I'd pass it around to all my friends.
Yeah.
We had a patio built or installed. We did the stamped concrete on our patio a couple years ago, and it's my favorite thing. Best contractors we ever had, and I could not tell you their names because they never called me. They never sent me anything, So we have all these missed opportunities. To your point, value building today doesn't have to be that difficult, but don't churn and burn. Like, nurture your customer base. And then start enjoying the revenue and the increased profits. And we can talk about it even in the next episode more. But if you're going to gracefully exit, whether you want to stay on as an owner or actually sell out and what that looks like, but value building today could be as simple as doing one thing a little bit better than I did yesterday. All right, let me take a look at my marketing. Let me just step it up just a notch. All right, let me take a look at my office, my front end. I used to do this thing, and I did a talk once, Matt, called the Executive Ride Along. And I practice in my team, and I'm happy to give any of your listeners the download anytime. But it's all about how, inspect what you expect. We all hear it, and we think that, we're so valuable. But we trained somebody when they first came on board. Like, when's the last time you actually did a ride along with one of your technicians, right? When's the last time you actually did a ride along and went and sat next to your dispatcher or your customer service representative? As owners, we get busy and we train people one time, and then we just assume that they're still doing it how we trained them, right? So executive ride along, just take yourself and sit next to them. Hey, you're not in trouble. I'm here just to make sure that you have all the tools and the resources that you need.
Yeah.
But even it's painful to go out in the field with your guys. It's painful to sit next to your office people and to see what's really going on, because we have to fix little things and tweak here and there. And then we can get our value up by doing just a little bit more than we did yesterday.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. I mean, it's all about improving the process. And I think that's a big thing, like a lot of people don't revisit a lot of these systems. They don't revisit a lot of the processes that they put in place, thinking, well, I've done it, it's finished, it's complete. But the reality is, like, everything changes and everything can be improved.
Yes.
And to that point, there's a good chance that you'll put someone in a position that can do something a lot better than you can do it. And that's the whole idea. And so that whole process that you put them in charge of, you should expect them to be able to improve it. And you should also give them the flexibility to be able to document it and update the processes so that, looking forward, that's how that task should be delivered. So I think, realistically, when you're looking at value building, and I say this with confidence, like, most of the listeners that are watching, or viewers that are watching this or listening to this, they are not putting the right amount of value into past and present customers. And I know it because this is the space we deal with. They just don't do it. Yeah. And again, I'm not having a go with them because I know it's something that's unfamiliar to them. Like, it's easy to run a Google Ads campaign because someone else does it, it runs, and they just answer their phone. But it's different when you have a conversation around, well, how can we add value to your existing customers? And so we like to create content or work with clients to create content that's valuable to them. We're not talking about ramming sales down their throat. We're saying, well, what about this project you just completed? Do you not think that people would like to hear about this and see the work that you've been able to do for this person? Like, what if they relate to it and they want something similar? Like, there's that whole ecosystem that comes into play that is so regularly neglected and, to be honest, just straight out relegated on the list of important things that need to be done.
Right. Yeah.
And I say to guys all the time when they come into our programs, I say, if you don't make this part of your process, it will always get relegated on the list of important things that need to be done, down to the point where having a beer at the pub on Friday afternoon after work is going to become more important than filling in this form. And so I just challenge you guys out there to really rip in and just get these things done, And you could sit down there for an hour and you could figure out 15 ways that you could add value, or you could, do something better than you're currently doing. But the reality is you won't, because you're busy and you'd rather go home and watch TV, We kind of...
And then your exit's just going to happen to you someday, and it's not going to be what you wanted it to be.
Facebook's going to come along and buy your business, and for $1 billion. Like, it's... See, but again, it is this kind of a testament to, you look at something like Instagram and you look at, okay, it looks like an overnight success, but the amount of work that went into getting that where it where it was at the point of acquisition, there's all that stuff that you can't see, and it was a tiny team. I think there was like 6 or 7 people on that team at Instagram, but that they had so many things in place that was delivering consistently, and it had a lot of those ducks in line. So there's a lot of things, and it will be the same for your business, guys. Like it might not be obvious from the surface, and it very rarely will be obvious from the surface. You look at like the old iceberg, cliche, term where where most of it's underwater, and it's true. A lot of it you can't see, but that's super valuable. And when people start looking in your business, at what's valuable, most of what they're looking at is not going to be the clean trucks, the shiny, polished uniforms and the big smiles on the text. A lot of it's going to be under the doona.
Yeah. And the person that's like, if somebody's going to buy it, that might not be what they need. They might not need the clean trucks. So having the conversations and keeping the conversations happening with coaches, with investors, with people, what's valuable.
Exactly. What's valuable. Like you say, we've got a nice new fleet of trucks. Well, that's great. We've already got our own trucks and they're not branded for us, so you can keep them. We don't want that part of the sale.
Right.
What a deflation, So you've got to have a lot of perspective and an open mindedness towards that sort of thing. Anyway, this has been great. Is there anything you wanted to cover off on, I suppose, before we jump into the final episode?
Hey, I love it. I don't want to make it any longer than it was. You already hit on, these last 4 words I like to say, though: clarify, simplify, maximize, and multiply. And so when it comes to valuable, your business right now today, clarify what it is that we do, simplify your processes, simplify, everything, your marketing, your message, maximize what you're doing before you multiply. And that's just a good rule of thumb before you do anything else to the value build.
I love it. I think as well on that topic, it's good. I like that the multiplier is at the end of that, because if you don't have that process dialed in, everything will duplicate and compound for better or worse. And you'll so make sure you've got it working before you flick the switch on it. And I mean, this is something I think so many people are too rushed with things. They're like want to get things to market without refining. And I mean, over the years, I've certainly learned to take our time with things and do it slowly, because if it's not proven and you still need to process things and get things documented, if you're too quick to get things out there and all of a sudden there's a huge flood of, say, for example, sales or whatever, all of a sudden all you've got is a shitstorm, which is getting bigger and bigger, and it's turning into a typhoon, Cool. All right, well, let's wrap that up. Folks, that was the second episode of the Exit Strategy versus Wishful Hoping series that I'm conducting with my series co-host here, Danielle Putnam from The New Flat Rate. The website there is thenewflatrate.com. And we're going to be coming back in the third and final episode, where we're going to be talking about gracefully exit and what your options are. So thank you once again, Danielle. And
thanks, Matt.
Folks, if you've got any experiences or questions, or you want any follow-up or anything like that, hit us up in the Facebook community. By all means, you can jump in there. It's free. There's 6,000 global business owners, trade business owners in that group. So you can certainly be part of the conversation there. And you'll see this podcast hit that group when it goes live. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.